Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Business Mind Developers. I'm Professor Point. This segment we're going to talk about nonprofits. To give a little history, the filing act of a nonprofit is 1147. Not really sure the year. I believe it's 1147 of 1958. Don't quote me on that. Check your state law. Here at Business Mind Developers, we want to always encourage you to always check your state rules and regulations against what we speak in order to get the clarification and the correct filing acts and procedures and forms. Now, nonprofit is a nonprofit. That's exactly what it is. It's actually called a not-for-profit company. But on the state level, they call it nonprofit corporation. Now, to file for a nonprofit corporation, you're going to have to fill out articles of incorporation of a domestic nonprofit. Okay? Articles of incorporation of a domestic nonprofit. That is the form that you're going to fill out. You have to contact your Secretary of State and locate the division within the Secretary of State that files entities, particularly the segment nonprofits. Now you're going to have to come up with a name, so make sure that your name is unique, because that's what the public is going to identify you by. Okay, here at Business Mind Developers, we encourage you to get several names, so that way you'll have options, just in case the name that you have when you call to the division within the Secretary of State to see if your name is available. If it is not, then you have other options. Because understand, there are millions of businesses, and so therefore there are millions of names. So your name may be similar to somebody who already registered your name. Now, when you register a nonprofit, it's very important to make sure if you're going to register as a 501c3 or not. When you register as a 501c3, the IRS has provisions that you have to go by. So therefore, that's the connection between the Secretary of State and the IRS, the connection on nonprofits, because they want to know if you're a 501c3, then that means that you're going to go by compliances that the IRS has provided for you to go by. You have to go by in order to be solidified or recognized as a nonprofit organization. Now, if you don't want to register as a 501c3, when you register as a nonprofit, you can register as just a nonprofit where you list your own provisions, meaning that you don't want to go by the rules and regulations of the IRS. But at the same time, even though you don't want to be a 501c3 and you want to list your own provisions, you're still going to have to follow guidelines in order to be a nonprofit, not following the 501c3, which is the IRS provision. So either way it goes, they're going to get you to where you're going to have to follow guidelines to be solidified as a nonprofit organization. So at the time of your registration, you're going to give them your name and have a list of several. Whichever one you choose, or whichever one is available, or whichever ones are available, choose one and fill out the articles of incorporation for a domestic nonprofit. At that time, you have to decide whether you want to be a 501c3, which means you go by the IRS provisions. Makes it a little bit easier to do what you're trying to do, because you're already agreeing to provisions, and plus they have benefits and they have guidelines that you have to go by. Or when you fill out the articles of incorporation to be a domestic nonprofit, you can fill out the articles of incorporation for a domestic nonprofit without the 501c3 provisions, and you can list your own provisions. But you still want to know the guidelines that you have to follow by, being that you're not going to go by a 501c3. So that's very important when you're filling out those articles. Another thing is that they're going to want to know if you're going to be a public or a mutual or a religious organization. So they want to know if your organization is going to be a public organization, or is it going to be defined as a mutual organization, or a religious organization. Now, if you're going to break down the three categories, in order to be a public organization, that means that you're going to have a nonprofit that's going to benefit the public, say like a youth home, or maybe like a AAU tournament. You want to do it as a nonprofit, something you're doing with the public, Red Cross, shelters, just anything that's going to be dealing with where you're going to be bettering the public, or educating the public, or giving back to the public, public organization. The next category, which they want to know, you have to choose one of the three. The next one is a mutual organization, which is more like a hunting camp, where it's just a group of individuals that just want to hunt, or it may be a golf tournament where you only have a certain amount of members, or you only approve members of certain qualifications to be a part of your golf tournament, golf club, things of that nature. You may have a nonprofit that's per se, as far as alumni, as far as dealing with your high school, your reunions or things that you guys may do. So it goes a lot of different ways. Do you want to be mutual? Mutual is more so like a hunting club, where it's just a group of individuals, not more so dealing with the public. It's more enclosed. Public is more outwards and working inwards. Mutual is more just sustained to itself, just one entity, only members wanting to deal with only each other. Now, religious organization is going to be more on like churches, or if you want to start like a Christian college, or things of that nature, something, or things of that nature, religious churches, Christian colleges, Christian schools. So that's what our ideal of here at Business Mind Developers would break down the category as far as public, mutual, or religious. So at the time that you fill out your articles of organization, of course you've got your list of names. You have a name that they find is not duplicated. You can use it. Fill out the articles of organization for a domestic nonprofit. You choose whether you want to be a 501c3 and go by the IRS provisions, or if you want to list your own provisions, not going by the 501c3. Then you have to make the choice of whether you're going to be categorized or looked at or perceived as a public organization, a mutual organization, or a religious organization. Now, once that process is done with the Secretary of State, whatever division they call it, then you are established as far as one of the steps it takes to be a nonprofit, because it's not just about registering with the state. That only gives you recognition in the state to use that name and to be defined as a nonprofit organization. Now, what actually makes you a nonprofit is the filing act when you do the articles. Doing articles means that you're going to agree to this filing act that was agreed by the state to be identified as a nonprofit. Okay, so that paperwork is very important. Now, in some states, their step process is very different. Some of them with the applications may have all of the steps in order to become a nonprofit at once. Other states make you go through different processes. Whatever state that you're in, check with your Secretary of State, find the division where you register entities, and get a clarification on exactly how you register a nonprofit. Some states will have you take a three-step process. One, you'll fill out the articles. Second, you'll contact what is called the IRS for exempt status. Meaning, once you take care of the process with the Secretary of State, their division, Then the second process is that you have to contact the IRS in order to file paperwork and pay more fees in order to become tax exempt. Becoming tax exempt meaning that any funds that comes into the nonprofit, you are exempt from paying taxes for. Now, how you draft your business plan or your operating agreement as to how the business is going to function, you can include how funds are going to be used. And these are some of the things that you'll have to come up with in order to present to the IRS, and in order for them to say that you're following the provisions as far as how you disperse funds, as far as how, if the nonprofit ever closed, how the products or anything involved in the nonprofit physically will be dispersed. So you have to come up with these different things as far as a nonprofit. But the second step is contacting the IRS, because they're going to exempt you from taxes. You're going to have to fill out paperwork, pay a fee, return it to them. They'll have to review it, approve it, send you back verification, and I'm assuming a certificate or some type of IRS stamp of approval that shows that you are approved and you meet the you are within compliance with the IRS as far as registration. Now, the third step some states make you take is that you have to contact an Attorney General division for solicitation purposes, and they're going to kind of give you the do's and don'ts, and plus they may have additional information or additional resources to really help you to grow. So registering as a nonprofit simply means that you're going to come up with a name. We recommend you get several. You're going to fill out articles of incorporation for a domestic nonprofit. You're going to decide whether you want to be a 501c3 or if you want to list your own provisions without the 501c3. Then what you're going to do is decide whether you want to be classified as a public organization, as a mutual organization, or as a religious organization. Some states may have everything on the application in order to become a nonprofit. Some states separate it. Some states you have to register with the division within the Secretary of State, then contact the IRS to be tax exempt, and then contact the Attorney General's office for solicitation purposes. Now, some other things that you can look into as a nonprofit as far as registering. I've heard people tell me of a 510 or something to that case. With the nonprofits, we highly encourage you here at Business Mind Developers to seek out all of the statuses that are related to nonprofits, because having a 501c3 status gives you a lot of benefits and it allows you to go through a lot of doors. Now, being a 5C10, I think that's what they call it, may give you other benefits, and there may be other statuses out there with numbers in front of them related to nonprofits, which will also benefit you. Nonprofits are not supposed to make any money, but they can be profitable in a respected way. A lot of nonprofits offer free services, or they get workers who offer up their time to help the nonprofit to survive. Some nonprofits may do a banquet every year, presenting some type of reward or some type of dinner, fancy dinner, in order to try to get people to donate funds, giving them a projection of what the nonprofit wants to do. You can also get a grant writer, which is a good thing, to try to do fundraisers to get money in order to get a grant writer to help you to try to get funds into your nonprofit. So there's a lot of things nonprofits can do in order to operate, even though they are not a for-profit organization. I've even heard some people here at Business Mind Developers say that you can You can draft up your business plan with a salary of yours in there. Even though it's not a nonprofit, the funds that are being donated, whether it's a financial institute or individual or a organization or LLC or Inc. to you to fuel your vision, you can engraft your salary in there. But those funds are used to benefit whatever the vision is of the nonprofit. So we hope you've got a better vision of what nonprofits are. We only want to get you the basics, not too much, but starting a nonprofit is a great thing. I myself, I'm looking into it. I want to do some things to educate the kids and give back. So nonprofits are a great thing. Hope you grow.